it's been a horror week for the federal government, with 4 of the immigration detainees released since the High Court's decision last month now being charged with new offences, and 1 re-detained because he had an outstanding arrest warrant. How does it happen? But in the context of such a big news story, you'd expect the relevant ministers to front the media. But on Tuesday, the day after the Advertiser exclusively revealed that one of the former detainees, a sex offender once deemed a danger to the Australian community by a judge, had been charged with assault in Adelaide, Home Affairs Minister Claire O'Neill, Immigration Minister Andrew Giles and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, well, they were nowhere to be seen. O'Neill and Giles emerged from their bunkers on Wednesday to face the press pack, but they were accompanied by Attorney General Mark Dreyfus. Now, as you've probably seen by now, Dreyfus was asked by this network's political reporter, Olivia Casely, whether he would apologise to the public. This is how he responded.
Do you owe an apology to those in the community that have been subjected to misdeeds by some of these individuals?
I want to suggest to you that that question is an absurd question. I will not be apologising for upholding the law. I will not be apologising for pursuing the rule of law, and I will not be apologising for acting. Do not interrupt. I will not be apologising for acting. I will not be apologising for acting in accordance with a High Court decision. Your question is an absurd one.
Angry, belittling and finger-pointing at Ms Casely. Now, I don't need to defend her. She's big enough to stand up for herself. But I know as a newspaper reporter that I enjoyed nothing more than making people angry. If someone bristled at your questions, you knew you were onto something. I remember as a local government reporter in Adelaide being told by a councillor that the council staff were worried when they heard I was coming to cover them. That's how I knew I was doing my job properly. And later as a newspaper chief of staff, I similarly revelled in making my reporters get people angry because I knew it was the makings of a good yarn. But imagine if a senior coalition minister had treated, say, a young female ABC or Guardian reporter in that way. You wouldn't be able to move for the accusations of misogyny. Nine newspapers' national affairs editor James Massola clearly picked up on the same thing, tweeting that there would be a riot if a coalition minister spoke to a young reporter like that. Now, Dreyfus said, "I will not apologise." It's the one thing we could count on, but Dreyfus did, apparently.
A young female journalist asked if a woman who had been assaulted by one of those released deserved an apology. Not only did the Attorney-General refuse to apologise, he aggressively shouted at the young female journalist. Has the Prime Minister forced the Attorney-General to apologise?
The Attorney-General my understanding is, has spoken to the journalist concerned, has apologised.
But it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Left-wing outlet Crikey simply characterised it as a mouthful and bought into Dreyfus's rhetoric that it was a stupid question by saying she asked it even though the government does not have the power to override the High Court. Do you think they'd have been so forgiving if it were a different government? I mean, Caroline, seriously, Dreyfus was obviously on the ropes, but you just know that if that question had been directed at a young woman from the ABC, we would be here today talking about a minister who should have their head on a spike.
Totally. There would be a coalition minister pinata out the front of Parliament House and there would be baseball bats for days. We know that. But what this actually shows us is how the senior ministers in the Labor government just aren't match fit. You know, they've been in opposition for 9 years. They've been mollycoddled by the media, haven't had any tough questions, and all of a sudden they're in and they're responsible and they're accountable for the decisions that they make, or in this case, the contingency plans they put in place or don't put in place prior to a High Court decision coming down, and they're responsible for those decisions. They don't like being asked the questions because they know they don't have good answers.
I've never understood, as a politician in front of the media, like I know people snap from time to time. We all do it. I do it probably more than most. But when you're asked a question and you know it's going to be broadcast across the nation, how hard is it to just cool your jets a little bit and go, okay, perhaps we made a mistake here. I'm going to admit I got it wrong, and the public will actually appreciate that I've shown my human side.
I just can't believe the effort it takes for you to be Mark Dreyfus and to be at a press conference with Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles, the two most under-siege people in the country, and to come out of it the main character. Like, no one was thinking about you. I mean, you can just imagine Anthony Albanese. He's got his, he's trying to get in and out of Parliament. He's got his dark trench coat and sunglasses, and he's in the huddle. He's just telling them, look, it's going to be a fiery press conference out there. I'm giving you Mark Dreyfus. He's got the deep baritone voice. He's unfathomably boring to listen to. If the press conference gets out of hand, just hand it off to him. He'll bring the sting out of the room. And Albanese just must have been watching that press conference going, what is going on? It's just the worst note in which to end the year in Parliament.
It's just fantastic. The Attorney-General going off his chops. Now, very quickly, stories of the week. James, what's yours?
Yeah, cool. So I'm a producer here at Sky News, and one of my pet peeves is hosts messing around in the sting. So for people at home who don't know what a sting is, you're in a commercial break, and then you hear the dun-dun, dun-dun, and you're back watching the media show. So that dun-dun, dun-dun, that's a sting. And some hosts sometimes like to muck around in the sting.
You're not having a go at me, are
To
you?
give their producers a heart attack. Nothing is ever gained from this behaviour. Nothing is ever gained from mucking around in a sting. And you think everything is going to be okay until one day it isn't.
Live from London, this is BBC.
Don't muck around in the sting. Don't muck around in the sting.
All right.